Sometimes when we take on larger projects, we can run the risk of getting burnt out. So I decided to take a break by converting this captain in Gravis armor from the Dark Angels Combat Patrol box into a great looking leader for my Chaos Fallen Angels. But before I knew it, I'd accidentally made the greatest diorama ever. This is Cursed Crusader Arts. Now, I'm not a huge fan of Gravis armor. I think it looks kind of weird with its huge puffed out bulky chest and its weird looking boots.
What are those?
I began with the intentions of making a Fallen Angel duelist, but as I tried out some posing, my plan soon shifted to a kind of dual power fist wielding member of the Red Corsairs, heavily inspired by Vi from Arcane. And for a while, that's where the idea stayed, until the later stages of the conversion. So the kitbashing began by removing the iron halo. I found no reason for this to remain on my soon-to-be Chaos Marine. I decided to glue this onto the trim of a shoulder pad instead, which ironically I would find out later that I wouldn't be able to use it because it would get in the way of the exceptionally large and bulky power pack that the armor has, so I'll just save it for another project. Looking through my spare parts, I ended up finding an old arm from the Chaos Terminator Lord kit, which was equipped with a lightning claw. I felt that these extra long finger blades would help to modify the silhouette just enough to give him more of an evil appearance, and this was sort of taking inspiration from other Chaos leaders like Huron Blackheart and Abaddon the Despoiler, where they have lightning claws or they have a power fist where the fingers are designed to act as claws. Then for the torso, I wanted to remove anything that would immediately mark this miniature out as a loyalist. I found these pieces of armor from the Hellbrute. If I flipped the pieces upside down, it was around the same shape and size as the front part of the Gravis armor chest piece. Carefully, I cut off the loyalist chest piece, being careful around the legs and the arms, which are also attached to this part of the miniature. Because of the pose that Citadel has chosen for this particular model, the Hellbrute armor doesn't quite fit the way it's supposed to. It would either get in the way of the connection points where the arms go, or it would sit at the wrong angle. It would either tilt the wrong way, or it just wouldn't sit right on the model to read as a singular part. So to fix this, I start by taking the back half of the torso, and I glue in both of the legs back into place where they should be. This gives me a sort of template to work with where I can use the gap that remains to sort of slot the Hellbrute armor in once I've trimmed it down to size by cutting away at the edges and the underside of the armor. The next major modification is the power pack itself. And to start off with, I completely discard the cloak. I remove the ammunition feed from the Stormbolter. I've decided that this character is pure melee. He's not going to use any sort of ranged weapons at all. So we remove the ammunition belt and we cut off the Stormbolter itself from the Power Fist. At this point, I also remove one of the vents from the power pack to make room for the spiked shoulder pad that I made earlier. And this is the point where I realized that shoulder pad isn't going to fit. So I have to get rid of that, replace it with a different shoulder pad, and now I have this great big ugly flat surface on my model. So yeah, that was that was a great plan by me. Good job. So to fix this massive space, this presented an opportunity to use those extra pipes that I was talking about. So I found this this sort of, I think it's an orc piece actually. It's like a boss pole with a big spike, a couple of trophies on it, but it's got this sort of pipe coming out the side and it goes into this little weird sort of tank thing. And I thought that looked great, so I hooked that onto the side, and then another piece that I found, which I think is maybe an old Age of Sigmar piece. I don't really know where it comes from, but it's like another kind of tube, and I liked the shape as well, so I put that onto the side and it fills in all of that gap. It became apparent that my model had undergone yet another stylistic change. He was no longer a red corsair. Instead, he's been stolen by Grandfather Nurgle. I begin creating an actual story around him. So, this is the Plague Hunter, a Chaos Space Marine driven mad by the blessings of Nurgle. Unable to feel anything, he's become a wild, rabid monster, so unlike the other Plague Marines that some would find more similarities between him and the Blood God's Berserkers. The Plague Hunter is unable to feel anything from the wounds inflicted upon his flesh to the wind on his face. It's maddening. He needs to feel something, anything to gain the favour of Nurgle once more. The Plague Hunter chases down great beasts that have festering wounds, vile neurotoxins and necrotic poisons in the hope of finding and bringing an unknown disease to his chaotic master, not knowing that he will always fail. The Plague Hunter no longer finds joy or glory in combat and is reduced to a feral and rabid beast, cursed to wander alone for an eternity. After making this little backstory, I realised that I had to make something considerably larger than what I've already made. I recognised that I needed to not only build the scene in my mind, but to actually build the stage itself for everybody to see. I decided to set this story in an old ruined manufactorum, long forgotten by anyone, on a world overrun by mutated beasts. Something kind of like Bloodborne, or Riddick.
It's an animal thing.
The first step was to upgrade from the 40mm base to a 100mm diameter base. The Plague Hunter and his fallen prey, built out of a spare crypt horror which is also from my decade-old collection. I had the idea of these two fighters falling through the rotted roof of the manufactorum, slamming into the ground below, crumpling all of the already rotten ground around them. I needed to make a kind of crater, cutting and bending the pieces of terrain into the shapes that I needed to tell my story. Once the first few pieces looked good, I glue them in place with a glue gun and then begin to add pieces around them. And this is where the concept comes in from Bloodborne, which is one of my favourite games of all time. I wanted to take the idea from the game of beasts being the victims of hunters. So I designed my beast to look more like it was trying to escape. My sculpting has much to be desired. I don't have a lot of experience with it, so it's impossible to read the new parts as shoulders and muscles. So I completely cover this up with layers of muslin, giving the beast a torn and ragged cloak, which is also very similar to the poisoned beasts in Old Yharnam. Letting your instincts take over can often lead you off course from the original plan. However, it can also be incredibly liberating, allowing you to create scenes that normally you would never even consider making in the first place. Step away from all the giant projects or conveyor belt style bulk painting for armies and just get some spare parts together. Create a story and allow yourself to make a small scene. But whatever you do, make things, have fun, and I'll see you next time on Cursed Crusader Arts.